This is the representation of the kind of quality of speakers that we have here at West Hawaii Forum. And we put these monthly forums on to provide as much civic involvement and education on issues that are important to you, the community. We are one island. We are one community.
Aloha and good evening, everybody. My name is Jane Clement. I am the president of Community Forums. So yesterday, students from across the country participated in the national walkout movement to raise awareness on gun violence and school safety. So today's topic is very timely, very relevant, and very important. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Before I turn it over to our moderator, I would like to introduce the rest of our board. We are an all-volunteer nonprofit group, and on the back there is our Isaiah Heyer manning our camera. Pete Hoffman is back there. Scott Ordway manning our sound booth. Candy Ellsworth right here helping us with our PowerPoint presentation, and Mike Matsukawa manning our sign-in table. And we rely a lot on the support of our community to put on these monthly forums. So we would like to also thank our community partners, our County of Hawaii for letting us use this facility, Council members Drew Kanuha, Karen Eoff, and Miley David for providing some of the funding to help us run these forums. Boy Scout Troop 79, McDonald's Hawaii, Kathy and Robert Leopoldino, they provide our refreshments every single forum. Naleo TV, all of our forums are being recorded for later broadcast. In a couple of weeks after the forum, it will be aired on Naleo TV, channel 55 or 56. And of course, Mahalo Multimedia, our wonderful moderator, Ms. Sherry Bracken, who's a very important partner of this organization. And on that note, I would like to introduce our moderator, of course, Ms. Sherry Bracken.
Aloha. I'm really excited to be moderating this forum tonight because I really think the topic is important, and I've had the nice opportunity to hear a little bit about this before. As Jane said, big thank you to Naleo TV. Scott, who just disappeared, where'd he go? Scott is with Naleo TV, and Isaiah back here, and also David. So they'll do a great job of getting this on TV so you can watch it later to refresh your memory, or you can have other friends watch it because it's a great topic. We are very lucky tonight. Oh, by the way, just so you know, I am with Mahalo Multimedia, which means in English, Lava 105 Radio, Koa Country Radio, and I also work with Big Island Video News, and I do news stories for Hawaii Public Radio. Got to get a little plug in there for the people who make this all possible. We are totally lucky tonight to have the very best expert with Hawaii County Police Department that I've ever seen, Lieutenant Thomas Shopay, who is a super expert in active shooter, and I'll introduce him more fully in a minute. And we are also thrilled to have Shawn Suzuki, who's the principal of Konawaena High, and he's one of the very few principals on this island who's had to personally deal with somebody who was not shooting, but saying they were going to, and that's something really important for us to understand how our Department of Education responds or plans to respond. Now, one of the things that's been talked about all over the country after all these mass shootings, particularly shootings in schools, is so what should we do relative to legislation? And I am delighted tonight to tell you that State Senator Josh Green is sitting here in the audience, and I'm going to ask you, Senator Green, to give us a real short update on what bills, what legislation may be under consideration that would address any of these issues, because it's good for us to know what's going on. So if you don't mind coming up, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you for being here. As you may know, Senator Green represents pretty much the entire west side of Hawaii Island, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's going on in the state legislature? What are you people doing?
So, probably too little on gun violence, although the good news is that from the perspective of comparative states, Hawaii does stand in better stead than many other states. And I would defer to our experts as well to share with us. Over the years, we've made more and more robust the background checks. We have a pretty comprehensive, although many people don't know it, a comprehensive process that if people want to get guns, they have to get medical clearance in the state, and then they have to get county clearance to get their guns, which means that unlike many other states, if you do have some serious problem, say severe mental illness or a major drug addiction, and your primary care provider feels that you don't merit getting a gun, you won't get one. So there are a lot of checks, and it's probably one of the many reasons why we've had much less gun violence. You know, God, I hope so, because in the ER, the last thing I like seeing is gunshots. They're very difficult to treat. To Sherry's point, I sponsored legislation, as did Carl Rhodes, who's a good friend of mine, to ban bump stocks. That bill, there is that bill alive in the Senate, went straight through the Senate unanimously, actually, and then it's in the House, and the Judiciary Committee has the option of hearing it or not hearing it. I will tell you, just very briefly, my bias was even a little further. I asked in my piece of legislation to ban bump stocks, any augmented weaponry, and also, and this piece is a little more controversial, not political, but more controversial, to have people go back for re-registration after 5 years. And the reason for that is because after a 5-year period, a lot of us change. Look how much Pete's changed in 5 years. So the key is if you have an acute psychotic break or you develop addiction like many of us do or whatever, maybe we do want to review that. But that was just a personal opinion. And I think that we should continue to push the edge of the envelope in Hawaii on gun laws. But that's the piece of legislation that's available. We also are working with the Department of Education, and we're having them reassess the safety measures across the state. I don't know how much work they've done yet. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm so glad to have one of our best principals here to talk about what they feel is safe in the schools and what the best practices would be for lockdown. Again, I'm not an expert. I defer to our experts. But I think that over time, we'll see those kind of priorities. I'll be frank, you're not going to see a bill in Hawaii to arm school teachers, in my opinion. So I worry about that. I had a very excellent brief education. I'm not going to blow the punchline on our officer tonight because he was able to share with me today what he feels is smart for schools, what's smart for security. I think we should defer to experts in that area. But that's the lay of the land, Sherry, for the state.
Thank you very much, Senator Dr. Green. I didn't mention it at the beginning, and he sort of alluded to it, but in case you don't know, he's also a physician and works here at the North Kohala Emergency Room, which is also a long-term care facility, but he handles emergencies. So he's better qualified than some to see what the impact of gun violence is when it occurs. Now, the format tonight, as always, is we're going to have on our experts talk, and as Lieutenant Shopay is coming up to the front to do that, I will remind you that we welcome your questions. So if you need something to write your questions down on, wave your hand, and Ms. Clement will come running up with cards on which to write those questions. Lieutenant Thomas Shopay is a Kona resident and has worked for Hawaii County Police Department for more than 18 years. And the majority of that time, he was with what's called the Special Response Team, and that is our equivalent of the SWAT team. He was a member of the team, still is. He became the sergeant for the team, and then he became in charge of the Special Response Team and was stationed in Hilo. But then He got married, and now he has a little teeny baby who's about 8 months old, and he thought it would be better to be a little closer to home, so he transferred to Kona. So he's not the head of the special response team, but he is fabulous. I've interviewed him for my Sunday morning radio program 2 times. He's done active shooter presentations, and he's also been my subject matter expert when we needed one for a news story. He is a recipient of the Hawaii Police Department's Silver Medal of Valor, and he went to the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, which is a really big deal for the Hawaii County Police Department, and it's sort of like only the best and the brightest go to that. So I'd like to all to welcome Lieutenant Thomas Shopay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction, and we'll get started with the presentation. I will give the caveat in the beginning. There is a video in here that is slightly graphic, so I'll give a pause if anyone chooses to leave before that, because I see there are some children in here. But again, it's only a video. It's not actual real life. And if you can't handle what's going to be in a video, probably for an active shooter situation, you'd be in a really hard place. So, as we go through this, the presentation again originally is much longer. We tried to condense it down for this short forum here. So again, if you have questions as we're going through, please jot them down. We'll be more than happy to answer them during the forum after. So the first part here is immediate response to active violence. We're getting away from the term active shooter because active shooter helps our mind think only deal with a shooter. It's not that case anymore. We see vehicles being used, edged weapons, blunt objects, being used to cause this active violence. So we would like to educate our public on the best ways to handle an active violence situation, not just an active shooter. The introduction, brief bio I got through. Question, ask yourself this. How many already have a plan to deal with an active shooter or active violence situation? Some people do. Oh, you have a plan? All right. Some people do, some people don't. Some people have the mindset that it'll never happen. I don't need to worry about it. That's not the best mindset because we see these things happening around the country. There's no particular place that's off limits, so it can happen anywhere. Having a plan will help you deal with that situation much more effectively. That's why we have plans for hurricanes. We are developing plans for these nuclear missile attacks. Everyone got tested on that one, right? So we've got to have something in place so you're better prepared. And how many think here, I think that you're here, you probably want to think on this one, want to have some kind of a plan in place, or want to at least think about it. Should something happen, what is the best thing to do? What should I consider doing? So the purpose of this is to provide information to help increase everyone's survivability should you find yourself involved in an active, ongoing, deadly situation, such as an active shooter. It's to help fill in the gap. And what I mean by helping fill in the gap is from when bad things happen until the police get there. A lot of times the idea is when something bad's going to happen, I'm going to call 911 and the police will be right there. We're going to get there, but it's not going to be as quickly as you need us there. That I can pretty much promise. So the gap is from when bad things start happening until law enforcement gets there, what can you do? And there are a lot of things, if you're educated, you can make some really great decisions to help give you a better chance in that situation. Without knowing that education, you can also make some very bad decisions. It will put you in a very bad place. So the objectives will list some measures that can be employed to help reduce the effectiveness of an active, ongoing violent situation or an active shooter, helping fill in that gap. What decisions do you make during that time you're there? We'll describe the actions to be expected from responding law enforcement. A lot of times, our general public doesn't know what law enforcement is supposed to do. This last shooting in Florida, I think we're starting to learn what law enforcement is supposed to be doing, but it didn't quite get played out. So if you can understand what we're supposed to be doing, it'll help work together versus working against each other. And we'll offer suggestions to assist law enforcement and help protect lives. And it's not by doing anything very crazy or anything like that, putting yourself in danger, some very simple things. And then at the end, I'll provide some additional resources, and we'll have the panel discussion on the subject matter. So the awareness portion here, this is our disclaimer. It's in red, it's hard to see. The information provided here is not meant to be contrary to what you already have. If you have an organization that says, this is our active shooter plan, this is what we're going to do, stick to that. It's meant to be food for thought. If you see something in here that says, well, you know what, we didn't think of that. That might be a better way to handle that situation. please take it and run with it to make yourself a little bit safer, a little bit better off. There are, again, I talked about the videos. There's one video, it's about 3 minutes long. It shows an unprepared response, slightly graphic. I'll pause before that if anyone wants to exit the room. There is a longer video. If we have time at the end after the panel discussion, I'll be more than happy to show that it brings everything together. Active violence defined is subject or assailants whose activity is immediately causing death or serious injury. It is not just this active shooter anymore. So we see it with vehicles and things like that, as I had mentioned earlier. And that threat is not contained, meaning that they have access to move around, gain the ability to find additional potential targets. They can move freely through a large yard area, through a building. They're not contained to just one certain area. And again, we should no longer consider it just an active shooter. That gets the most media attention, but there are other ways to cause these mass casualties. This is the video. If anyone would like to excuse themselves briefly, it's about 3 minutes long, and it just shows an unprepared response. So this is an office complex having to deal with a worker that has been terminated, but look at their response, and then we'll talk about the things that they could have done better.
Where's Michael?
What do you mean?
Where's Michael? Where's Michael? Where's Michael? Where is he? Where is he?
Larry, calm down. What are you doing here? Calm down. Relax.
It's not a real video. That is actors portraying that situation, but a lot of the things in there is probably how it would unravel for a lot of people without a plan. We'll discuss those issues in there. A person walking into your place of business with an exposed firearm, is that normal? No. But how long should it take us to process, I need to get out of here? We just sit there and we try and rationalize and negotiate, wasting precious time. We'll talk about how we need to make those decisions quickly early on. Your response. There's 3 main options. This is put out by Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, National Tactical Officers Association. Our department also follows these main options. Other organizations have very similar. They just call it a little bit different terminology, but it's the same ideas. This is for an individual that is caught in this situation that doesn't have an option to defend themselves. Run, hide, and fight. Those 3 things, if you remember nothing from here, try and remember those 3 items in that particular order. The handout that is outside, I believe it has different terminology: escape, evade, engage, synonyms, means the same thing. We could go real quickly and just say run, hide, fight, and everybody got that, we're good, but that's not the point. You need to understand why you do those things and the purpose of those. So run. Your best option, if available, is to get as far away from the threat as quickly as possible. but that's not always going to be an option. It's only if you know where that threat is. If we're in this room and we hear it's coming from that direction, and I should mention this now before we get too much further, our exits are in the back. That is not an exit. So in case something happens, that is not a way out. Our back is the only way out of here. So if something were to happen and we can identify where that shooting or where that act of violence is happening, we would like to go the opposite direction. But if we happen to be inside here and we can't determine where it's coming from, we don't want to run out into that potential problem. So we would have to go to the next step. If we do have the ability to get away and we are running, don't run in a straight line. You want to put objects between where you are and where that shooter may be, if it's a shooter. Try and run in a zigzag pattern. It's much harder to hit a moving target that's moving laterally to give yourself the best opportunity. And once you're clear, you want to call 911. A lot of people are under the impression, well, somebody else called 911. But if you're the people that happen to be stuck inside, you're not going to have the ability to be calling 911 to be getting help. You're going to be working on some other things that we'll talk about here. So if you are able to get out and get away, call 911. Helps shorten the gap for all the people that are still stuck in that situation. Hiding is your next best option, and it's not closing your eyes and getting under a table. That's not hiding. That's not providing any protection. You need to secure, fortify your location. Make it impossible for something that's out there, the problem, to get to where you are in here. So think about securing the area. How can you do it? Do you have the ability to lock a door? If you don't have the ability to lock a door, can you barricade the door with things that you may have available? Chairs, whatever it is. What you're trying to do is make it hard for that person to get to your location. Because they know as soon as that first shot rings out, time is ticking against them. So if you are a hardened target and they can't get in the doors there, they're not going to waste 20 minutes trying to get in there. They're going to move on looking for the next easy target. So make yourself fortified. Some places of business and other organizations have been kind of creative saying, well, our doors don't lock, or we would have to have a key. Having a key is not an effective way to lock a door in a stressful environment like this. You would be going through a whole gamut of emotions. You would have an adrenaline dump in your system. Trying to hold a key, a fine motor skill to get it into a lock is not going to be very practical. You've seen the horror movies on TV, people, that's real. That is that adrenaline dump into the system. So this is more of a gross motor skill. They say we have a key on a door, can't work, but we have this panel, we drop over on the knob, you can't pull the door open. It costs maybe $10 or $15 for them to manufacture. It works. It's an easy thing. Other options are, if you have a door that opens outward and you can't lock it, these things have been used in actual active shooter situations. We said, I don't have that fancy stuff, but I have a belt, or I have a purse strap, or I have something that I can make it hard for this door to open. That's the goal. Make it hard to get to your location. Knowing what kind of doors you have and what type of protection they'll offer. The walls around you. Is it a solid core door that's going to provide some ballistic protection? Or is it a hollow core door that you can stick a pencil through? That's not going to help against a bullet. So think about where you are inside that room once you get there. Blocking the door, again, we talked about this. Chairs, whatever furniture you have available to make it hard to get to your location. Treating the injured. This is one thing that is commonly overlooked. Active shooter, active violence situations, Boston bombing, things like that, where there are a lot of people on the ground that need help, and usually the public around, the response is, don't worry, help is on the way. Kind words don't save lives. We need to take some action. So we'll talk about treating the injured. Remembering basic first aid. For bleeding, apply pressure as much as you can. You don't have to be very educated in that. Think of it like a garden hose. The water's coming out, you're trying to pinch off that hose. So pressure on it. Injuries aren't always gunshot wounds. We tend to think an active shooter, it's going to be all gunshot wounds. You have a heart attack. You have somebody that has slip and fall because there is blood on the floor and now has a broken arm or complications. Things to think about. It's not always going to be that gunshot. Be creative in identifying what items you have available to you for first aid. The things that are up there may sound strange or odd, but they are from individuals that have survived these type of situations. Said, I didn't have this wonderful tactical first aid kit available with tourniquets and quick clot and chest seals. I'm stuck in a room. I barricaded myself. They have used clothing, paper towels, feminine hygiene products, put in a wound, keep pressure on. It works. Sounds funny, but it works. Stop the Bleed campaign. This is something that was started with the last presidential office. And what it does is you'll start seeing this happening in the future. And this came about after the Boston bombing where, again, the kind words weren't saving lives. And they said, you know what, we don't think our public in general is knowledgeable enough about how to stop a bleeding wound. That's where we're having a lot of these deaths occur. So what this campaign does is there's a website that I'll put on there after everybody can look at, but it's very simple flow chart. Make sure you're safe. Look for life-threatening bleeding. Is a trauma first aid kit available? The vast majority of the time, the answer to that is going to be no, it's not. So you simply go to the left side of that flow chart. Any clean cloth, apply steady, direct pressure, keep it on there until advanced support gets to you. Most of us can follow that flow chart. Part of this program is you'll start seeing at government buildings and public facilities, we see fire extinguishers. We see AEDs. I see there's one in the corner over there. You'll start seeing hemorrhagic control kits. And it's maybe sad that we're getting to that point, but if we have that ability out there, in that kit or in that box, we'll have some tourniquets, some quick cloths, some bandages able to handle a mass casualty event. So it'll educate our public to kind of help better prepare ourselves. Hiding, unsecuring an area. You have secured yourself, you heard some shooting, and now you don't hear anything. So are you safe to come out? That tends to be a question that a lot of people wonder is how long does this shooter take or how long does this event happen? Historically, you'll hear a lot of shooting in the beginning because people are caught by surprise. Then it will kind of slow down a little bit because people are now learning what to do. They're running, they're hiding. There's not many targets available. Then the response of law enforcement, there may be more shooting on scene. So if you hear a lull in the gunfight, that is not the opportunity to now try and come out. It is to understand that is still stay hidden until help comes to you. The shooter may not stop until their objectives are met. Again, if there are no threats or no easy targets for that shooter, they're going to try and elicit the response of people in rooms. Help, help, he's out here, let me in. You're inside this room, you're safe, stay safe. Don't gamble your safety on the unknown of what is outside. That unknown, you cannot be sure that is not the shooter. If it's a other member of the public, you're going to know to continue moving on, looking for a better place to hide or continue out of that facility. But if you gamble your safety and depending how many other people are in that room and open that door, you may have let a person in, but now the shooter knows your location, and that's a higher value target. So don't open those doors, stay safe, stay secure. Any doubt on that safety? Stay safe again, stay secure. Please do not open the door, because it has been used in the past to elicit a response from people in a room. Doors, windows, openings, and noise, try and make yourself non-existent. So closing blinds, trying to block windows, turning off radios, computer monitors, anything that may flash or give off a light that would draw attention to the location you happen to be hiding in. This is going to be the big one early on. Cell phones and landlines. If we're all in this room and we're hidden and we're safe, I guarantee when the word goes out on somebody's Facebook or Instagram that the shooter is happening over here and your loved ones get that, what are they going to do? They're going to try and call you to make sure you're okay. But if we're safe and we're quiet in this room and now 50 cell phones start ringing and the shooter's outside, where do you think their attention is going to turn? Right inside here. So some of the first things to start thinking about is silencing cell phones, looking for landlines. Are there phones around that I need to quickly disconnect for now? We don't want to draw attention to our location. Consider placements of signs, things that later on after the shooting has happened, you don't want to open the door, but if you have a sign or you have the ability to slide underneath the door, how many people are in the room, how many people need help, once you can identify that's law enforcement or rescue help outside. Some places we're putting signs on interior doors with a glass window, but who else can see that sign if they're walking around? Shooter. So that's not the best place to put a sign early on. If it's an exterior facing window, preferably on a higher floor, that's better. That helps law enforcement so we can start figuring out where we need to go for rescues early on. Try and keep occupants calm and quiet. Good luck. Good luck. Not everyone is going to be prepared or have the mental capacity to handle this type of event. So how do you help people stay calm and quiet? Assign them tasks. Make them feel useful, make them feel occupied. Make sure everybody's cell phone is off. Try and find the fire extinguisher so we can use that to help assist ourselves. See if there's a first aid kit here. Push all the chairs up against the doors. Everybody is doing something. We're occupied. We're helping pass time. After we secure the room, we want to get people out of sight behind items that might offer additional protection. So we pushed all the chairs up against the doors can't be opened, we're in here, we're safe. That's not the best thing we can do. We can do more. A table like this is great, but it's providing no ballistic protection like this. Flip it on its side, so it's going to slow it down. What you want to do is put as many things as you can between where you are and where that shooter is. Should a stray bullet come through that door or that wall, it's going to hit a whole bunch of things before it touches you. Other things to consider, at schools or other places we've seen it happen, not so much in this country, is backpacks, the availability of backpacks. Where active shooters, they'll put backpacks on the kids because that's a little bit of what? Ballistic protection. All the books in there, that's providing some protection over vital organs. It's sad we're having to think that way now, but we want to give all of our people the best chance of survival. Fighting. Fighting is your last option if your life is in immediate danger, is to fight back. This is not to say there's one shooter, there's 50 of us, let's go get him. That's not the plan. This is our last option, but we should think about it early on. So if we're in here and we say we can't go outside, the shooter's out there, we're going to secure this place. Some of us, I'm going to start saying, find us some improvised weapons. Do the best you can. What do you have available to you? The camera on the stand, a fire extinguisher, a chair, whatever you have, you're going to have to make it work. Improvised weapons, throwing objects. You're distracting the shooter long enough to overpower that individual. Yelling and being aggressive, it works for the lions in the plains of Africa. The lion roars, right? Everybody kind of pauses for a second to see what's going on, and they go back to business as usual. That's a startle response. It happens to humans. And some of you have probably done it to friends or loved ones. They come around the corner, you scare them, right? That's a startle response. You can do that to the shooter too. That is your intent. Your intent is to startle them for that half a second while you can overpower them. Commit to your actions. If you get to this point, things are bad. You don't get a second chance. The next time I'm going to push a little bit harder. No, you need everything you have at this particular moment. So you got to commit to your actions. Do not handle a firearm. And I'm going to explain why this is a little bit later on. If you happen to overpower the shooter, don't pick up that gun, and I'll elaborate on that a bit. If you pick up the gun and do whatever you need to do, don't hold on to that firearm. Contacting emergency personnel. 911 system is going to be overwhelmed. I promise you that. You call 911, you're going to get a busy signal. Be prepared for that. But if you have pertinent information, we just saw them go around that corner. This is what they're wearing. Great. Keep trying to get through. We also need to know and be aware that there is text to 911 now available. So anyone that has a cell phone, if you look on your bill, there's an E911 fee. Part of your bill went to help build this system. This system allows you now to text to 911 if something is happening to you. If you can't go on the phone or you don't want to talk because you're hidden in that closet and the shooter's out here, you can text that information to dispatch. And this is part of that. I'll give you that as the additional resources after if you want to look into this. So it is another good thing to be aware of. What to report, what we would love to get. That dispatcher would love to get this information, and so would that first responding officer. Where you are. Building name, office, classroom, hotel, room number. Some large facilities, I'll go and present, and I'll say, okay, great. How many of you know exactly the name of this room that we're in right now? Right? It's where they do those meetings. Great. But if that's a dispatcher trying to send an officer that may not be familiar with this area, how do they know how to get to you? If you don't know where you are, how can help get to you? So try and situational awareness, know where you are, or know how to direct somebody to your location. How many people are with you? That helps us later on when we start needing to figure out where do we got to do rescues? How can we get people help and get them the medical attention they may need if there are injuries? The suspect, this is the great stuff. The dispatcher is going to start watering in the mouth. The first officer is going to say, great, we can put an end to this. Where are they? How many? One is two. What do they look like? What are they wearing? What kind of weapon? You don't need to be an expert, but was it a long gun or was it a short gun? Backpack, rifle, rolling duffel. Are they carrying additional things with them? That is usually a bad sign. Do you recognize the shooter? What is their name? Have you heard other explosions or other things going on to lead us to believe that there might be other suspects at that location? Those are the things the dispatcher would love to get. First responding officers would love to get that. The reality is, it's not going to happen. The first people calling, even seeing the shooter this far away. I'm the shooter, I come around the corner, there she is, she sees me, something distracts me, and fast, I know you're fast, she's gone. She gets away, she calls 911. The dispatcher's gonna say, 911, what's your emergency? I was at this shooter, I saw the active shooter. Okay, tell us what you saw. I saw him, and what did he look like? And the gun, and the guy, the gun, it was black, and it was 3 feet. Okay, slow down. Describe the shooter. And it was 3 feet, and it was right in his hand, and the gun, and it was black, and I could see it. Okay, slow down. We need the description. Give us these things. How many? What they look like? What's the clothes? And it was right there. Is that her fault? No. That is that human response. That is that adrenaline dump. You are just confronted with a life and death situation. Your day did not start out saying, probably going to die today, so here's what I'm going to do. You went about your business, and that was that shock, that kind of confrontation, that adrenaline dump in your system. You're going to have the same effect that is going to be happening to the officers and all those people there. Boom. You'll have auditory exclusion. It can be hard to hear things. So when the officers are yelling to you, hands up, you're going to hear the Charlie Brown. Right? That's what happens. These situations are chaotic. And that's why you see it takes so long for them to get under control, because it's overwhelming to our system. That adrenaline dump. Those of you, I guarantee everybody's experienced an adrenaline dump in your system, whether you knew it or not. And if you don't burn that adrenaline out of your system, it'll come out. And that's when you're going to get those shakes after that you've been scared or startled. It's trying to get out. It's telling you, it's giving you that extra energy to fight or to run as fast as you can. You'll hear that the auditory exclusion, you'll have that visual distortion, or just everything fades out, tunnel vision. And why? She just saw the gun, that one thing that can end her life and end everything, all the bad things, the gun, that's it. I'm this far away. She can't see me. It's not going to happen. But 48 hours later, 2 sleep cycles, when her body gets back to equilibrium, normally you'll be re-interviewed, and you'll have a very good description. Oh, he was about this tall, he had this color eyes. I remember he had something on his hand, and he was wearing shorts, and he had a backpack. How come I remember it now? You're no longer in that bad state. You're back to equilibrium. Those details at that particular moment are not important to you. Your survival is. That's why you, gun, get away. Later on, you can remember those things. And that's why for a lot of high-profile investigations or assault type of investigation, robberies for law enforcement, there is a re-interview of witnesses, because now it's much clearer of who that suspect is. But does that help law enforcement, the first responders going to the scene, to get that information 2 days later? Not really. So the law enforcement response. Law enforcement is going to immediately respond to the area. We're going to go there based on the calls for service that we're getting. We hear shots fired at wherever it is. That's where we're going to go there and figure out what's going on. Important for you to convey to others, help is on the way. If we happen to be in this room and we see that first patrol car come up, safe, we're saved. Do we want to run out to that officer? No, because what is their best description of the suspect? With the gun, he had the gun. That's it. That's all they got. And now 50 people are running at this poor officer trying to figure out, is it you, is it you, is it you, is it you, is it you? How long are they going to take to actually evaluate that whole crowd? It'll take a long time. Are you complicating that officer's job? Yes. So if we know we're safe, stay safe. Let them work through that situation. Law enforcement's goal is to locate, contain, and stop the shooter. So it's going to take some work for them to try and find where that shooting and where that incident is happening. The other reason I said earlier about manipulating or picking up a firearm, what is the law enforcement officer's best response or best description of who the shooter is? No, somebody with a gun. So you did whatever you had to do, overpowered that shooter, and now you're holding their gun over him like this, and here comes the first officer. You're the good citizen, right? What does that look like to that officer coming through that door? Yeah. So handling a firearm after the fact is not a good thing. It's something to be aware of. Safe place for you to be is inside a secure room. The safest place to be is gone if you were able to get out of there early on. But if not, stay inside that safe, secure room. It's going to take a while for law enforcement to clear the facility, depending on how big that facility is. The shooter may not flee when law enforcement gets there. We talked about earlier, shooting is going to be a lot early on. It'll kind of dwindle in the middle, and then it might pick up when law enforcement gets there. And that's because now that shooter has more targets to engage as we come on scene. Shooter's mindset is usually not to escape. Their goal is to kill and injure as many as possible. So don't think, it's been 10 minutes, I haven't heard any shots. I do have that lunch meeting I need to make it to. Don't go. You can miss that meeting. Officers may point firearms at you while they're searching. Again, the reason is we don't know for sure who that shooter is. We don't have a great description. And a lot of times the description that will come in will be contrary. I talked about the overwhelming senses that's going to happen to you, that adrenaline, tunnel vision, auditory exclusion. It has happened in documented cases where people will call, we saw the shooter, he got out of the car, he had the rifle, he went this way. We thought there was only one shooter. There was a rifle over there, and now there was a gun. Oh, we have a problem. Is this a coordinated attack? Now a whole bunch of officers start coming. And then when they start interviewing these people again, where was that shooter you saw? Oh, he was right over there, and he ran across into that building. Can you point out the car he got out of? No, that police car. That's the police car he got out of? I'm sorry. I just saw the guy with the gun, and that's usually what happens early on. For law enforcement, we end up chasing our tail a lot, and it's not the public's fault. It's just that's the way our body works under those stressful conditions. We see that object, we see that firearm, or we see it going somewhere maybe it shouldn't be going, and we assume that's a problem. We don't see this whole picture, we see the small part of it, and that's what gets reported. So those are things to just be aware of. Try and keep your hands visible at all times. Listen to instructions as much as possible, but again, you're going to probably be hearing the Charlie Brown, the wah, 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 wah. So if you can counter the Charlie Brown with the Bullwinkle. All right, your hands up, keep your fingers open. We see there's nothing in there, moving on. And this is a decent audience, I didn't date myself too much with the Bullwinkle. Most people understand that. Okay. Law enforcement, injured persons, that is not going to be the initial responding officer's primary goal. This has happened many a times where they get on scene, we don't hear any more active shooting, we're not confirming the shooter is gone, we start helping people only to be ambushed and murdered by the suspect who wasn't stopped and contained earlier. So the first priority for law enforcement is to identify the shooter, make sure it's stopped, all bad things are over, and then work on help. You may have to explain that to other people that don't understand. How come the policeman just walked by that guy? He needs help. They're not helping him. He needs help. Why aren't we doing anything? Well, it's not over yet. You call for 911 and say, hey, bring in rescue, bring on all the fire guys to help. Are they going to come into the scene? No, because it's not safe yet. If they come in and they get harmed or hurt or injured, that's how many more people that they can't help. So they have to come into a safe scene. So we have to make it safe before any help can start happening. Evacuations, there's a lot up here. I'll go through it fairly quickly, but spend some time on important points there. Safety corridors will be established. It may be time-consuming. Remain in your secured area. And I talked about earlier, you're safe, we're safe in here. How do you know when you get the police? Anybody in there? Oh, right? Do I answer that, or is that the bad guy trying to trick me? So you have some options. You're going to have to make an educated decision. Most active shooter situations, about 15 minutes is the time frame, depending on where you are and how quickly you have access to resources to come help you. But if it's been 3 hours, you haven't heard any shooting, you hear a bunch of more people moving around, and you hear that knock on the door, police, anybody in there, and you say, you know what, I'm confident that's law enforcement, you can make that choice. If you still say, man, I made it this far, I'm not going to gamble on this one, you can call dispatch or text dispatch. I am in this room. Somebody outside says to the police, I don't know if it is. Dispatch will be your third party verifying. What's your name? Contact the officer via their radio, and they can now give that information to you outside the door. Hello, Pauline, this is Lieutenant Shopay. I know you're in there. You just called dispatch. Can you open the door if you're okay? Now we verified who it is. We can open that door. You may be instructed to keep your hands on your head. You might be searched going out because we don't, again, not sure who that shooter is. For this type of incident, don't take personal items with you upon evacuation. That just complicates things. But I will tell you the one thing you should take with you is, I talked about as being evil earlier, that cell phone. Evil early on, but a lifesaver much later on. When you get out, you should contact all your friends, family, and loved ones. Tell them you had a bad day. I'm okay. Don't come down here. Don't come down here. Those three things. Bad day, okay, don't come down here. We've seen, Sandy Hook was a horrible example of people not knowing what's going on, parents, understandably, trying to get there to check on their kids. And I can only get this far to the school, but I need to get there. I leave my car, and I walk to the school. The ambulance is over there, can't get out. You're contributing to the death of so we do not want to duplicate that situation. Could that have been taken care of by saying, it's okay, don't come here, go over here, we'll take care of this. We don't want to have that same situation replicated. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Suggestions to assist law enforcement, prevention is always the best thing. There are clues out there. These type of events are mental health issues. They don't happen overnight. There's a lot of clues along the way, and it's not with the police. It's with the public, who is either going to say something and kind of act upon it, or not do anything. We have to change that mindset for our public. Start reporting these things so we can start getting early intervention for mental health treatment as much as possible. Discipline appropriately and fairly. This is more for organizations. Don't play favorites. Conduct regular threat and risk assessments. Look at your area. What are our evacuation routes? Did we used to go out that door all the time, but now we have a banquet table outside there? That's going to be a problem. So look at things to see how things may have to change. Have a mechanism for reporting and intervention. That's probably the biggest thing. What do we do when we see that weird thing or that strange thing happening? It's no big deal. Or do we have a way to report it? Prepare for an active shooter response. No evacuation routes. Went earlier. Only thing is out the back. Know how to get out. Have employee or personnel rosters. You're responsible for all the people there. It's much easier for a law enforcement after to go to the boss or manager or wherever, or the principal, and say, how do we get a hold of all these people? Is everybody accounted for? And they can kind of help us with that work. Say, yep, everybody's good, but these 4 people, they were in this classroom or they were in this office last. Now we know where to go to check on them. Call center, ability to do mass notifications. That helps calm the public down. We have Nixle that some may be familiar with to send out mass notifications. I know the schools have other ways to contact the parents. Same thing, same kind of idea. Ongoing training, at least think about it every once in a while. And a go bag is a small bag that you may have that has some medical supplies, maybe a spare battery for your phone, some snacks, and a water. You just keep that by where you spend most of your day, your office, wherever it may be. In case you had to barricade yourself in there, you have a little bit of niceties. And if something bad happened here, everybody's going to be coming for this because this is where all the snacks are. Yeah? So watch out. Law enforcement kit, if you're an organization, have master keys, maps of property. Usually the maps of property is we'll just pull down the fire evacuation map, and that's what we go for. And very quick in closing here, situational awareness, this is the biggest for most people. Know where you are. Help can't get to you if you don't know where you are or be able to provide instruction. Know how to get out and get away. Have a plan, share it with your family. If you see something, report it, realizing time is important. If you see a bad thing happening, it's taking you 6 minutes to realize, man, that person with the gun, that doesn't seem right. You just wasted 6 minutes of you being able to get away or start to barricade yourself. Active shooter, take an active leadership role, run, hide, fight. Try calm, reassure, quiet others by assigning tasks, report that incident, treating the injured, knowing what law enforcement's going to do, neutralize, evacuate, and follow on with the investigation. Can't predict the next threat. Doesn't mean the clues aren't out there. Usually it's with the public. So we got to start reporting and talking about these things. But we can we cannot control the actions of another. We can't control our response. If it happens, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit here and hope somebody else will take care of me, or am I going to have a plan and act upon that? And then take that responsibility for your own safety. Positive mindset is probably one of the biggest things. If something bad happens, it happens to me, I'm going to survive because I owe it to my friends, family, and my loved ones. It may be bad, but I'm going to make it through this. And then share that information so that everybody is on the same page. You don't want to know, I'm supposed to run out that door, and then your family thinks they're supposed to lay on the ground and play dead. too late. Got to be on the same page prior to these things happening. We don't want to be the next. It could happen here, USA. The additional resources will go as in our police department website. If you go there and you can click on the links, it'll get you to a lot of videos and additional information from Department of Homeland Security. The only other big thing on there is a Kuleana hotline. That is that red flags. Maybe not a criminal offense, but something's weird, something's not right. That's a way to report it, the 961-2219. And I'll discuss these additional ones during the panel interview. This video will stay. Thank you.
Do you think he knows his stuff? I think he does. As I mentioned, I've had the real nice opportunity, the privilege of interviewing Lieutenant Shopay a couple of times before. And the cool thing is, we live in an area where we just have not had this kind of mass violence, thank goodness. But, most of us travel and you go to the mainland, and it's good to just be aware of what you need to know. So I very much appreciate him doing this for us. The other thing we wanted to do was talk specifically about schools. I had the nice opportunity last Thursday to do an interview with Police Chief Paul Ferreira, which aired on my Sunday morning program a couple days, how many days ago? Today's Thursday, last Sunday. And he mentioned that it's really important for the police department to show a presence whenever there is an actual threat, although we've never had an active shooter at any school here on Hawaii Island, thank goodness. Last Wednesday, there was, a week ago yesterday, there was a person who actually called Konawaena Elementary School and made sort of a vague reference to doing something. And fortunately, we have a police forensics officer who can trace phone calls and such, and they and the FBI are on that, so I have no doubt that this person is being dealt with. But because it happened, the police last Wednesday were at Konawaena Elementary School from 7 in the morning on, just to show presence, just to be there. Weren't doing anything, just talking to each other. 2 weeks before, we actually had smart people, stupid people, who posted things on social media making threats against Konawaena High School and Pahoa School. And, the police take anything very, very seriously. But what we need to understand now, and what Shawn Suzuki, who's the principal of Konawaena High, is going to share with us, is what the schools do, how they respond when something like this happens. So join me in welcoming Shawn Suzuki, and he will tell us what we need to know. And then we'll take questions. So if you do have questions, please write them down, write neatly, and that'll be helpful for those of us who have to read the questions. Thank you so much, Shawn.
Oh, yeah, you're really, really welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I want to just say that you're getting the B team. Because actually, unfortunately, Complex Area Superintendent Art Souza was unable to be here. Art, of course, will have a much broader perspective as far as the entire department and those sorts of responses. So really, what I can give you some of that, but really what I can give you is our Konawaena High School. I mean, that's just the closest to us, right? Department of Education, I mean, of course, with not only the number of people, not only kids, but faculty and staff that all of us have to keep an eye on or take care of and be responsible for at schools. It's about certainly emergency preparedness for whatever the situation is, whether it's somebody violent on campus, fires, earthquakes, et cetera, et cetera. So there are 5 drills that the Department of Education, that schools run annually, some on a more frequent basis than others. And my guess is, again, at whatever schools, because I can't speak for specific schools, but I do know this, that the frequency of drills and what have you is certainly increasing for things like this rather than a regular fire drill. 5 drills. Bottom line, there's 2 things that what we're trying to do, we prepare for the best, prepare for the worst, right? Hope for the best. There are really 2 drills. You either got to get in or you got to get out. there's only really, bottom line, 2 drills. So the Department of Education has prepared a brief video. It's all available on the hawaiipublicschools.org website. One is about emergency preparedness and those drills that schools annually review and go over. And there's a second one, so thank you very much to Jane, who was able to load this. And the second one is a bit, well, certainly more school shooter specific, but not necessarily the type of drills, but just to talk through, because students do have concerns. I have concerns, and we all do, about the way our schools are designed in the state of Hawaii. We're very fortunate with amazing weather, the communities that we have, and all of it, that these are not brick buildings that you can just slam a door in front. We're pretty spread out, and so it's just a nice video to talk about that, and maybe some things that we can begin doing, as unfortunately we enter some different times now for us. So thank you. The emergency drill, thank you so much, Candy.
Well, when I first came here, I thought it was really big. And like, I even had to use a map to try and find my way around. And I think I'm still using it today, like just to check and make sure I know where I'm going.
McKaylee Chalmers, a Maui High sophomore, has had her fair share of campuses. But after 7 schools and 5 states, something about Hawaii still stands out.
It's nice to be outdoors and get some fresh air.
Yeah, Hawaii is a unique environment in that I think, as all of us here live here know, we have a climate that is pretty much comfortable year-round.
But over the years, Charles Kaneshiro, the president of an international architecture firm based in Honolulu, sees a storm brewing in his industry.
The majority of our schools in Hawaii are older, so they're designed to standards that existed 50 years ago. The more current schools are being designed with school safety in mind, and obviously that's because of Columbine, or more recently Sandy Hook. I don't think anybody 20 years ago would have even imagined something like that happening in a public school. I mean, we send our kids to go to school to learn, not to be killed.
We're in an old building.
Where is that?
Oh.
Alkinsall has worked as a school resource officer for 3 years. He says he has noticed that with the rising risk of school violence, there are inherent challenges with protecting schools with multiple buildings.
Trespassers can gain access to our campus 360 degrees, making it nearly impossible for us to maintain a secure campus unless we had the manpower to hold hand by hand and surround the school. It's pretty much impossible to keep somebody out.
There's all this fear now that I might send my son or daughter to school and they may not come home. And so there's a tendency to want the schools to become a prison. And that's the trade-off. If we design our schools as prisons, then can you imagine the type of education that's going to occur in them?
If there was bars displayed, metal detectors that they have to go through, there's this constant unsettled feeling. All of that creates a culture of anxiety and hypervigilance, which when you're in a hypervigilant state, which is watching out for danger, it's very hard to learn.
Toby Neal, a licensed clinical social worker at Maui Center for Child Development and a previous counselor at multiple Hawaii schools, suspects that fear-driven architecture may detach children from their roots.
We did not evolve inside of buildings, and I think the optimal learning environment includes nature.
In order to balance the two, a good learning environment and a safe area is by having what we call zones of supervision. So instead of less glass, there's actually more glass.
Pu'ukakui Elementary School features large hurricane windows, which can hold form even when cracked to impact. Open areas within immediate distance of protected spaces, unobtrusive chain link gates which subtly control access points, a campus-wide alert system, and staff distributed so that every corner of campus is under adult supervision at all times.
It's not designing a completely tragic-proof school. You can't do that, and that would be a prison.
Ultimately, it's about balancing security with nurturing learning environments so students like McKaylee can enjoy what makes school school. She believes children should be able to
come to school and just focus on their work and seeing their friends and not have to worry about like their well-being or anything.
So that is available on the Department of Education website. When you go there, you know, there's some discussions, there's some videos around this topic. Our schools here on the Big Island, most of them are pretty old. Konawaena High School is 97 years old. And several of our schools here have the additional challenge of literally a public road running through the middle of it, which adds a completely entire layer to trying to secure it, health, safety for everyone that is there. So continuing to talk about it, all schools, depending on certainly the physical environment, but everything else on how they can best prepare, how all of us can best prepare, really just in case, because you never know. This is the emergency video. So this one has the 5 drills that schools run. So I also want to say this about the 5 drills and the frequency or setting up different situations. It's great to run drills during class time because everybody's in the room and all you do is close the door, or everybody gets out and everybody puts on a vest and walks out and stands in a line. In a perfect world, perhaps. But heaven forbid a real emergency happen, it's exactly as Lieutenant says. It's not going to be that way. And people are going to panic. And a whole bunch of other things are going to happen. Because if it's lunchtime or recess, and you need to lock down, then that's going to add a whole bunch of problems. Many of our schools, so the good news, is that many of our schools also run those drills. What are we doing with, and so surprise drills or drills that happen during those times when there are more kids outside, and how do we quickly lock down, or how do we quickly evacuate? How do we quickly gather in a safe place? How do we try our best to account for everyone in a situation like that? So there's so many different layers to this. For our faculty and staff, Diane Spencer, myself, what we try to tell our folks is this. These are the drills. You know what to do in case of these drills, but you got to be the rock for those kids. You have to be the one that's calm. You have to take charge. And sometimes, depending on the situation, you got to use your common sense. Because that's going to have to kick in. Because no situation is just going to be the way everyone expects it to be. Yeah? So here's the drill video. The 5 drills that the Department of Education runs, and then we're great to catch some questions. And again, hawaiipublicschools.org has a lot of information, okay? Thank you, Candy.
Hawaii's public schools are committed to preparing students and staff for emergency situations. The Hawaii State Department of Education requires 5 types of emergency drills to be performed at a minimum of once per year. They include evacuation, tsunami, earthquake, lockdown, and shelter in place. Evacuations are performed when the safety of a campus is compromised, such as a fire, hazardous odors or noxious fumes, or a security threat. Teachers and staff guide students in a brisk, orderly fashion off campus to a pre-designated evacuation site. During a tsunami event, students are guided off campus in a brisk, orderly fashion to a pre-designated site that is located farther inland and/or on higher ground to escape the reach of incoming tsunami waves. In the event of an earthquake, the response is to drop cover and hold on under desks to protect themselves from falling items or debris that might be shaken loose during seismic tremors. When a school goes into lockdown, students are secured where they are or in the nearest securable building. All windows and doors are locked until teachers receive an all-clear notice. A lockdown will take place to secure the school campus from the possibility of an intruder or an unclear situation that could be taking place nearby. Access in and out of campus is restricted. The goal is to keep students in place until there is no longer a threat. Shelter in place is similar to a lockdown. Students and staff are directed to remain in a secure building. All windows and doors are locked until teachers receive an all-clear notice. It is also the safest response to a chemical attack or missile threat. Individuals adhere to the emergency rule of get inside, and stay informed. Schools may choose to run these 5 different types of drills more than the minimum requirement of once annually. In the event of an emergency statewide, complex-wide, or school-wide, the Hawaii State Department of Education will post information on its social media accounts and website, hawaiipublicschools.org.
So the last thing that I just wanted quickly to say is, in the situation perhaps like with Konawaena High School or right down the road with Konawaena L and some of the other schools, that partnership with the Hawaii Police Department has been amazing. And everyone needs to know that those men and women care so much for their schools and their communities that they are really there to help support us and try their best to keep those campuses absolutely safe as well. So through these situations that have come up, really that contact and that continued communication has been instrumental. That's number one. Number two, please know that the social media layer, as good as it is for getting information out, it also has the potential to cause quite a stir, which can really complicate things a lot. So it really is double-edged. And, you know, if we have a chance, maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. But for us as adults, and certainly what we're trying to do with kids is really teach it, because we're the Department of Education. We're education. It's about prevention. It's about learning. It's about social emotional learning. It's about before it gets or anyone gets to that level, that it's important for all of us to really engage our young ones and to help educate and also ensure that there's that sort of responsibility as well when folks get on these things, yeah? So looking forward to your questions. Again, thank you very much for having me and really, really appreciate it.
Konawaena High School, do you actually do tsunami drill? Because that's going to be one heck of a big tsunami if it comes up that high.
Yeah, we do our tsunami drill weekly. No, I'm kidding.
Good.
No, the tsunami drill is obviously for those schools that are only in that zone. You know, I'm sure a tsunami drill may happen at some place like Kahakai or other schools, Waianae High School, those high schools. We have not run a tsunami drill at Konawaena High School.
Glad to hear it, because I was thinking if that's like a rule that you have to follow, even though it's ridiculous.
No, totally.
Good.
Totally.
Glad to hear that.
Totally.
So are the room numbers posted inside the rooms in the school, so if somebody does have to call, if they're inside, they know what room they're in?
Room numbers are not posted inside, they're posted on the exterior.
Maybe they should be posted inside, since Lieutenant Shopay told us to stay inside and call 911 and tell them where we are?
Perhaps, and again, you know, some teachers may put that up or whatnot, but again, you know, we're talking about schools, and the schools weren't designed to take those things into consideration. So these are things that we're talking about in order to beef it up and to better address these emergencies.
Is that the kind of thing that the Department of Education has to agree to, or could you as a principal or any principal do that? Just put room numbers inside a classroom?
Yeah, it's simple enough, right? Print them up
Just
on a
curious.
piece of paper and laminate it and stick it up on a wall. You can certainly do that. And I think most schools, and again, so I'm only speaking for Konawaena High School, right? So I think most schools, when they have their evacuation map, they have a map there, fire, and circle with the room that they're in and where to go. So although it may not be posted, those evacuation maps are in every room.
Another question for you, which is this. Clearly, as was pointed out, and as everybody knows, our schools are a little bit open, very open in some cases. I mean, I can walk to your campus and come in and see you pretty easily. And the video talked about potential changes, sort of making the schools a little less open. Is that something that the Department of Education is actually working on, planning, has funding for? No, we don't know that.
Yeah, I would have, that's a Mr. Souza question.
Yeah.
And, well, just I think by virtue of the video, there's certainly discussion, with Maui High School, speaking
Right.
with architects and whatnot. Have I heard that there is a plan to retrofit schools or to do that to schools? No. Certainly, now moving forward, unfortunately, those are some of the design considerations moving forward. And will there be sort of some consideration on how to beef up our older schools? Certainly. I have no doubt that the department and a whole bunch of other folks are in discussions about it.
Because that's really an interesting challenge architecturally to change the way our schools are set up. It would be a challenge. It will be a challenge. I asked Senator Green before he had to leave, is that something that's being discussed at the state legislature? Is the Department of Education coming forward with that? And he said they're beginning to have those discussions, because clearly it's going to be a fairly long process, and then the funding is also an issue. Lieutenant Shopay, we have some questions for you, but before I do that, I just wanted to mention, Mr. Suzuki, you mentioned social media, and when I had the nice opportunity to talk with the police chief last Thursday, he mentioned the thing about social media, and people need to be super responsible about that and not just pass on rumors. Because what happened when you did get somebody who was sort of making a threat, people are passing on things that may or may not be true, they don't know. And we saw this during the lava flow. In 2014, somebody posted on social media that there was going to be a big gang summit down in the Pahoa area. And I did an interview with Captain Sam Jelsma down in Puna. I said, tell us what you know about this. Besides the fact that somebody would have to be stupid to go into a gang summit in an area where there's National Guard, police, everybody in the universe, Captain Jelsma was actually, because social media is trackable, he was able to track down the individual who posted that. She lived in Mountain View. He went and talked to her, and there was no basis to it. She sort of made it up or heard it somewhere. So basically what the police chief said to me is people really, really need to be thoughtful and help your kids be thoughtful. And if you see something on social media that sounds too bizarre to be true, we have Hawaii County Police Department. They have a non-emergency number, 935-3311, right? Call them and ask them before that kind of thing is passed on. So Lieutenant Shopay, the first, I believe, mass school shooting was at Columbine. Tell us what law enforcement gleaned from that. How did law enforcement response change because of what was learned at Columbine, please?
Columbine was, I wouldn't say the first act of school violence, but it was one that kind of gathered national attention because we started to have a lot of technology, smart devices, where people could circulate that information quickly. What changed from that after all of these events, these bad things that happen? As law enforcement, we like to learn from them and better ourselves. So there is an after action that's looked at. Columbine was looked at, and the response in that initially at that time was to use a tactical team primarily to have your patrol officers hold the scene until the people with the better equipment and wonderful armament get there to handle that situation. The problem with that is we're seeing is sometimes those teams take a while to get mobilized to get there, and if you're waiting as lives are being taken. That's not the best way to handle the situation, because even a patrol officer has more equipment than your average citizen. So it kind of brought into the idea that our law enforcement should, if we have actionable intelligence on scene, the first responding officer should make contact with that to try and end that situation.
But basically what you're saying is, I think is, you know, you're trained now as an officer, you go in, you don't wait.
That there's a little bit more explanation for that. So going in is if you have actionable intelligence. If the first responding officer gets there and hears that active life being taken, they hear gunfire, they hear bad things happening, something they can act upon, they will move towards that threat. But if the first responding officer gets there and doesn't have any actionable intelligence, they would be running into an unknown, not knowing where to go. They could be going the wrong direction. So the first responding officer has to make a decision whether I'm going to enter that area because I see that's or can hear that's where the bad stuff is happening, or I'm going to wait to gather more intelligence before I make my commitment to enter that structure.
Okay, thank you. There's been discussion, not here in Hawaii really, but in other places, about having armed teachers in schools. And what that leads to is you are part of the special response team. How much training does somebody like you get, and how much training would somebody who would be an armed person in a school need? How often would they have to be at training to be able to do the kind of response that would be appropriate should they be called or pressed into service?
I think the idea or discussion of arming teachers is that it should be a discussion. But you bring up some very good points. It shouldn't just be passing out firearms to teachers as part of your daily equipment. There does have to be, if that is a consideration, a lot of other things that need to go into that. What kind of training? What type of liability? What is their ability? And how willing are these people to actually, the teachers to actually take on that responsibility? You can't force someone to do that, and it's not for everyone. So as your question to how much training they would have to have, it's dependent on every individual. There would have to be some type of standard set. What that is, I don't know, but it would have to be a very high standard.
One of the things that when I actually asked the police chief this similar kind of question, and he noted that police officers have a wide variety of options. They don't walk in with just a gun, they walk in with mace or whatever you call it. They walk in with a taser, they walk in with a baton, they walk in with sort of an ability to assess the situation.
Options.
And he felt it was important to understand that, because clearly your first option or your first preference, if somebody can be disarmed or neutralized by some method other than deadly force, is to do that. But part of that, he said, is assessment and experience and knowing what you're looking at.
And how is the officer going to know if that's a teacher, not the shooter?
And that is part of that whole discussion. So I think when the topic comes up, arming teachers, we tend to think that's everybody's going to get passed out a firearm and we're going to just go from there. It's a very early on in that discussion. There are a lot of things and a lot of considerations before I would even consider that being a good idea. So it has some work to be done. I'm not saying it's impossible, but there are a lot of things that need to be discussed prior to just arming teachers.
I would hate to have to interview a science teacher and then also ask them, how good are they with a 9mm? I mean, that to me would just be, I don't know. I'm just giving you my personal opinion.
Well, let's see, don't you have a master's in education administration? Is that what you prepared for? Did you go to gun training when you were getting your master's in education?
I didn't, because it was quite a while ago and that was definitely a different time. Whether or not it's happening now, I don't think so, and I certainly hope not, but the times have certainly changed.
Police chief did mention that should that be ever proposed by anybody in this state, he and the other police chiefs would be testifying against that, just because there's so many training issues and they don't want to make the situation worse. By the way, all 4 police chiefs are going to be on Island Insights on PBS tonight and then rebroadcast on Sunday. And police chief mentioned that they may end up being asked about this kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say. Mr. Suzuki, since you have sort of been in this situation, when you got information that somebody had actually made a threat against your school, what did you specifically do?
Well, the situations that happened at schools, and again, that's sort of what has been becoming different in whatever it is that's being passed on and in the media. You know, Konawaena High School didn't receive a direct threat. It was that someone had posted something about schools and whatnot. I mean, we knew who that person was when it came to our attention. Immediately, what we do is we secure our campus or make sure that that person or anyone is not on campus, to make sure that that is safe. And I mean, I don't know that it's appropriate for me to go into certain details, but that's number one. Number two is for us to inform HPD, let them know that that has happened. Well, I mean, this is happening simultaneously. These are not, we're not doing this consecutively. And then for myself to contact superintendent, contacted the neighboring, because we're so small, right? Ehunui, Kaimalino, and Konawaena Middle, we're all right there. And Konawaena Elementary, try to let their administrators know, as well as speak with the DOE Communications Office in the state of Hawaii. And then continue to work with the police department regarding follow-up to make sure that everything is secure, that if there is a suspect, that he or she is maybe not necessarily in custody, but absolutely accounted for. And so those are the things that we go through. It was a very different, or it becomes a different situation when there is a direct threat, which unfortunately some of our schools have had to experience as well.
And my understanding is that in this situation and in the Konawaena Elementary situation, the police not only use your own forensic experts, but you call in the FBI and use their experts, Lieutenant Shopay?
So I'm not going to go into detail on that because I was not really tied into that investigation. But the department does have assets on island where, for large investigations like this, can tap into the resources of the FBI for additional assistance on those type of matters.
And that's, I confess, Police Chief mentioned that you are in always close contact with the FBI about anything that looks like it could be an actual situation, even though he stressed there were actually no, as you said, it wasn't direct threats made, we're not saying we're going to Konawaena High School tomorrow with this weapon and we're going to kill people. But the police take it all very seriously, even if it's
and the schools,
sort of a thought.
right? Again,
yeah.
we have to make sure that we address it absolutely with urgency, and because we don't know. So we definitely, everyone involved, HPD, the schools, and everyone absolutely handles it with gravity.
You have a school resource officer, not on high school premise, but middle school is right there. Does the school resource officer work with you at all?
Often. We could request some assistance. Again, it's that relationship with HPD. I mean, the school resource officer program is fantastic. And that school resource officer's job is not, number one, to be an armed officer on a campus to secure it. That person's job is really to assist as an educator and to support programs and to do those sorts of things. I think it's absolutely amazing. And yes, fortunately for schools, and perhaps unfortunately for schools, the officer is very good about working with the entire area in case there is some sort of safety emergency, those types of concerns.
A question we have is, does the school have a program that if a kid feels like there's a threat, Johnny Jones has been acting very odd lately, he's been withdrawn, he's talked about unhappiness, maybe even not making a direct threat. Is there an easy path for a person to report this to the school? How does that work?
Yeah, I think there is an easy path. Again, it really is about relationships, right? That's what we want for our teachers, right? That's what we want them to build. We need them to build relationships with kids. do you know that that Shawn is not feeling so good this morning? You can kind of tell that he's a little bit different or something is going on. Of course, we have school level counselors. We're fortunate to have school behavioral health therapists on our campus, and I think just about all campuses, or certainly the complex has them, that schools have access to. The Department of Education has school psychologists, and work not only with families, try to provide that sort of counseling, but work with private providers and families as well. Like I tell folks, and like we tell folks, if we don't know, there's not much, we can't do something about it. So if you know somebody, you know something, you have some information, it's important to let us know. It's important to let somebody know. And that's the kind of caring, and that's the sort of watching out for each other that we're trying to nurture at schools. I don't want any kid to feel like he's tattling, because it could be something that's really important. And the same goes for parents, because they may be seeing something in their son or daughter or someone that they are providing care for, and the schools can provide some sort of help or at least some sort of direction towards it. And I think, like Lieutenant's presentation, it's absolutely like that, trying to take care of things that way, social emotional learning and caring for people prior to that.
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
it is a different time.
Lieutenant Shopay, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that's very true. That is probably the root of a lot of these active violent type of situation, is that mental health issue, which as a society we're having to learn how to properly deal with that, which is proving to be quite challenging.
I will say the Department of Education also has done definitely, how do we say, like established positions, those sorts of things to provide more and more mental health counseling, schools, maybe even at the district level, et cetera. So it's definitely something that is continuing to build. Mr. Souza, in his complex area, also having that social and emotional learning, that's a very big focus, having a big professional development, bringing a lot of folks in, teachers, the entire complex, representatives from all schools to help develop even stronger programs there. It's definitely to the fore.
Has everybody here signed up to get Nixle alerts and Blackboard alerts? Do you know what I'm talking about? Nixle are the police station alerts or police department alerts. You can go to hawaiipolice.com and get right on that. And then the Blackboard system is Hawaii County Civil Defense. You go to the Hawaii County Civil Defense website, and it's really helpful if you want to get information more quickly. Yes, sir, Mr. Ken Obenski. It's on.
Some feedback about Nixle. There's too much gossip. Not enough useful information. There's plenty of useful information, but there's a lot of gossip, and it gets annoying.
Could you define gossip, please? I get them, and I don't see gossip. Although I did hear that Lieutenant Shopay had lunch at a restaurant the other day instead of staying at his desk. Is that what you're talking about, that one?
Well, I don't know, because I got so fed up with it, I took my name off the list. But there'd be a lot of it is like, Officer Kyogi is going to retire. This officer's being promoted. Just trivial stuff that nobody needs to know outside the police department.
I like to know.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about what's going on in the police department. But that they do use Nixle to communicate retirements, because it's what they are really communicating is who's been promoted to fill the place, so that if we need to call, we know who it is to call. Just so you know, I know that's why they do that. They also use Nixle for things like HiPal and stuff like that, maybe not as urgent, but you can also in the Nixle system choose what you get. You can choose to get road alerts, and you can choose, there's different options.
Yeah, the Nixle, I know when I first signed up for it, I had everything, and you're getting text messages at 3 o'clock in the morning about a tree that fell over in Pahoa that if you live on this side, it doesn't affect you. So that I learned quickly how to change those things. But as for your concern, I'm not very certain, or I can't say with certainty, if you can select certain police ones versus certain emergency ones. The civil defense way is also does the road closures and things. There is somewhat of a delay between the two, but you will get more specific things that doesn't have our promotions and an officer of the month and those kind of things.
However, let me just say that in the last year, we get nixles more quickly
Correct.
relative to
Correct.
accidents, road closures, so don't give up nixle because it just comes sooner. You know, the interesting thing about mass communication system, this is fairly new technology, and there are challenges in how you say what you say. It's not just here. Last night, I happened to hear part of a program on Hawaii Public Radio. It was an NPR program called Reveal, and it was an analysis of the fires in Napa and Sonoma that happened last October, and they have now reverse 911 there, which we do not have in this state right now. So they were able to call people, but they played some of the messages, and they need to work on how you say what you are saying to make it absolutely clear. In that case, they were telling people, get out of your house now, there's a major fire coming. You had a different kind of message, but it is important, and it's a new thing where people really do have to think about what's being heard, so.
Department, you know, we as an institution, it's growing pains, and I think there are a lot of people working really hard to try and get as much out there as quickly as possible that folks need to know, and we're getting better and better. I want to just say, you know, on behalf of the department, because I have seen it for 30 years, we are really lucky to be in Kona, and you need to know how much the schools appreciate you. And you need to know how much we appreciate your support. And you need to know that we know that you really care about you just care about kids. This entire community and schools do. So let's just please work together with schools to make them better, keep an eye on kids. And I really think that all of us are going to make an amazing difference. There's no place like home, for real. So I need to say that. So thank you guys for everything that you do.
That's a wonderful way to conclude our forum.
Didn't mean to do that, guys. Sorry, bro. I didn't mean to.
Are you crying, Shawn? If you're going to cry.
Am I? I'm sorry, you guys.
But it really is true. Even whether you have kids in school or not, everybody's our kid. Anything else before we say aloha and I turn it over? Yes, Jim?
Follow up to the item about the schools having numbers inside. How about this building? How about this complex?
It says exit right there. That's the name of this room, isn't it? No, I'm sorry, it's not.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
But no, that's a good point. And Barbara Casal was here, but she's not, so we'll make sure she gets that message, because you're right. Yeah.
And I think that's such a great idea. We're definitely going to do it at our schools, and then we're going to pass this on to the rest of the complex, and maybe even in some of we have monthly safety minutes and whatnot. I just think that it sounds like it's a really small deal, but it could be a really important piece. So we'll get that done.
And the thing is, whether you know, I mean, today I can tell you we're in the council chambers, but once my adrenaline kicks in and someone's pounding on the door, I may not know where I am, because Lieutenant Shopay is correct about that.
The great point, the schools, primarily, it's going to be the same people in the same rooms all the time, so the teachers are going to know where they are, the students will know, but the great point is these public areas where we come to visit maybe infrequently, we know where the area is, but we don't know exactly what the name of it is. So how do we provide that information? So great point for the public areas and gathering venues like this area. So with the E911, it does allow the ability to figure out where your phone is roughly, whether or not you have that on. So it would place it within a general area. So if there was an influx of 40 calls from this general area, they can it wouldn't be able to pinpoint it to this exact room, but it would at least get this facility.
However, I understand that, in fact, there is a plan to be able to do exactly that, even narrow things down to, I'm in room 1420 in the hotel as opposed to 1320. We are now concluded. Ms. Clement, let's give our presenters a round of applause. Thank you, guys.
I want to thank Ms. Sherry Bracken, of course, for always doing a fabulous job at moderating these forums.
Thank you.
Thank you to Principal Shawn Suzuki and Lieutenant Thomas Shopay. And thank you, community, for your input and for your great questions and for participating at these forums. So thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.
This is the representation of the kind of quality of speakers that we have here at West Hawaii Forum. And we put these monthly forums on to provide as much civic involvement and education on issues that are important to you, the community. We are one island, we are one community.